70s, and I worked there for about 3 years, getting total familiarity with the formalities of art. It was a tremendous relief for me after working years and years on my own to be working from something in front of me. And that seemed to release me to be able to express the next batch of work. Well, the next batch of work, as it turned out, was a number of very large pastels mostly of women, but again, they came out in a very unconscious way. But it was after a year of drawing from the model that I was able to do that, I suppose, you know. On the one hand, I had done bronze sculpture of women without knowing anatomy, and the body seemed to be in all its right places, but after I had spent a year at the League, I was able to do I guess I can't even really say what they are. They're sort of specific again, and at the same time, they have this energy in them. It's not simply running. It's an energy that was almost like, to me, as if they're running from a form of hell. I mean, or something. There's something very universal in their quality, for sure, for me. And I think that all of the training that I was getting at the League released that after a year, and so I have those. They're the beginning of my going into painting, which was necessary because I needed more to be putting down more than one thing. And in my sculpture, I was basically dealing with one object, and the transition into painting, I think, opened up a whole possibility of, you know, a wider interpretation of the material that needed to come out. Yeah, after the Art Students League, there were a number of years in which I was in New York working and teaching, and also a number of years in Princeton. When I came out to Sussex County, I was privileged enough to be working both in my own studio and then in the more recent years at Sussex County Community College. Working in the art department at the community college is really a really interesting experience because there's all levels of students, and there are many, and there's different aspirations. You know, the students have different aspirations. Well, look at it. My basic personal feeling about the philosophy about teaching is that every student who comes in there, and actually I feel this not just about students, I feel that human beings have an innate sense, an innate creativity in themselves, whether or not they use it in the mode of draftsmanship or two-dimension is another thing, but people think creatively. When you get up in the morning, you put different clothes together and they look great, and you know, so that creativity is in the individual in a very natural way.
May I suggest then that you maybe tie him down, you know, structurally, right, so that you then at least know what's going to be behind, and so he's not floating. Right, so that he's not floating. You may decide to float him, but right now it will give you you know, some solidity to know where you're going.
When students come to the art department, it's often with a tremendous self-expectation, and the process of creativity is very exciting. It's very exciting, and at the same time, it needs a little, you know, gentle handling with regards to teaching, and the results of that, the combination of those two things, the eagerness and the expectations of the students, and the teaching, the fundamentals of art, the drawing, which is essentially drawing and painting are the basic essentials of the art department at the Sussex County College. And there's some wonderful work being done. There's really some wonderful work. I consider myself to be an abstract painter. I mean, it seems to be what I'm most comfortable with, although I have to say, you know, it comes from a very traditional base. And what that means is, you know, that, you know, I've learned the academics of art as well. And it still, for me, is, art is still, for me, a mystery. And at the same time, I'm really grateful that I've had the very solid part of it, the education of it. I continue in oils mainly, on canvas, and the League is always my, I'm very grateful to that experience because it's such a great school, and I had a lot of really wonderful experiences being taught by people who were in the avant-garde at that period, and people old enough to even have been in Paris in the 20s with Picasso. So I sort of reaped the benefits of a lot of very extraordinary teachers, and they were really, really helpful. At the League, they taught in a very European way, of on top of you know, on top of the formal anatomy type lectures and experiences. They taught philosophy. They taught their philosophy of their life and how to live and be an artist. So that was the essential.
Well, I think that artists are influenced by different painters and artists at different times, depending on their development. And so I can say that very early on, I was influenced by people like Rembrandt, Bronzino, the Sienese painters of 16th century Italy, Giotto. Later, I was really blown away by the abstract expressionists, of course, and Picasso. There's no one that hasn't been influenced by Picasso in this century, and Gorky, marvelous, marvelous painter, and identify very strongly with the work that, of course, has a psychological connection, as well as the beauty of the work and the technique and the way that paintings are rendered. Much of the later work that I think that these particular paintings, if I think back, I remember that at that time I was looking at Francis Bacon, as well as some of the old Renaissance painters. But yeah, it's every time you need something, you go looking for it, and they're different artists at different times. You appreciate them more sometimes